If you're a B2B service founder, in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how high quality LinkedIn ghostwriters are writing 20 posts from less than 2 hours of your time every single month. I'm going to tell you exactly what a good content interview looks like and how a skilled ghostwriter can turn your own ideas into separate, unique posts that drive inbound leads. For context, I run publicative.com, and this year we've generated 1,200 leads for B2B service founders using LinkedIn alone. I'm going to show you the exact process by which our clients generated all these leads. Let's jump in. So whenever you decide that you're going to be posting on LinkedIn, you need to start with three core things. You need to start with an optimized profile, you need to start with content strategy, and then you need to source topics for your content. If you want to check out videos on content strategy or on profile optimization, check out other videos on my YouTube channel. I'm diving more in depth into them. In this video today, we're going to cover topic sourcing, which is whenever you have a LinkedIn ghostwriter writing posts for you so that you get to generate leads from the platform, you need to absolutely have your own inputs as the source of this content. The easiest parallel that I can give you is AI. So imagine you fed Claude all of your existing content, all of your context, all of your stories, and asked it to write a LinkedIn post for you. Now, Claude by itself is not going to give you great inputs the same way a human ghostwriter can. However, if you just compare what a generic Claude workflow would do versus a workflow where you fed it all of your data, all of your context, this is going to be night and day. And the same goes for writing posts. Imagine there's a ghostwriter and you're asking them to write 20 posts for you. Well, the only way they're going to be able to write posts that you would sign off is only if you give them the right stories. And this process for how we're doing content interviews is exactly how everybody can turn their existing ideas and their existing expertise into the sources for content that generates leads on LinkedIn. So for sourcing topics, you really have only three options. You can either stare at a blank page, not recommended. You can use pre-existing assets to repurpose. For example, if you have YouTube videos, if you have content on other platforms, or if you had podcasts, there is usually a certain level of ideas that you already shared in there. And depending on whether that matches your content strategy, it might be a viable source for your content. However, the best way by far is to get interviewed by somebody who supervises your entire content strategy. So what a content interview does is it allows 60 minutes of your passive thinking. And by passive thinking, I mean you being prompted by the interviewer to tell your stories about your expertise. The ghostwriter is able to write 10 to 20 LinkedIn posts based on just 60 minutes of your time. And in that content interview, what we should be aiming for is telling 1 to 2 stories for personal brand and testimonial posts, right? So basically you sharing your own client results, as well as some of the lived experiences that you've had that are relevant to your ICP buyers. Then there are 3 to 5 main ideas for actionable value and thought leadership, which are content buckets that I cover more in depth in my previous video. You're free to check it out on YouTube. And we want to be going 3 levels deep into every one of these stories to capture the full story. I'm going to give you an example. This year, I've generated 1,200 leads using LinkedIn content for B2B service founders. Now, if there was an interviewer interviewing me exactly about how I did it, the way they should ask me questions is, okay, tell me a little bit more about how many clients there were. What are the kinds of posts that generate results? What did these founders do differently from the other clients that you were working with, right? So we really want to get as much depth as we can about the particular story, because that is going to allow us to do 3 things. First of all, we'll be actually able to create these post kernels. So a couple of different post kernels that we've just outlined from that story that I just told you. It's like, okay, what's the strategy for service founders who are generating leads on LinkedIn? What are they doing differently? Second one, what did I learn from generating 1,200 leads in 6 months for B2B service founders? A third one would be, what are the overlooked tactics that these people did that most people don't, right? So there's many, many ways to retell that same story, but just one story can allow us to write a couple of posts depending on the angle that we want to take from it. But if we're able to go deep, because remember, a content interviewer is only going to have 60 minutes with you every 2 or 4 weeks. So we want to make sure that they get enough ammunition to then be able to fill in the gaps and write a post that will be exactly what you would want written. Now that we have the kernels for these posts, what we're going to do is we're going to segment the different ideas covered throughout the entire content interview into topic clusters. And I'll give you an example. So right now we said we have 1 to 2 stories, right, for personal brand posts, and we have 3 to 5 main ideas for more actionable posts for the audience to build and deepen trust. So right now we have 20 posts to write. We only have 5 stories. How are we able to use different angles to have all these posts be unique and talking about different specific pain points relevant to the buyer? So let's look at a real scenario. From a content interview, let's say you have 2 stories, 1 client result, and 3 frameworks for how your service operates, right? Then what you can do is try breaking them down using different angles. So let's just use one of these 6 different kernels. So we have an example founder, we have meta ads agencies for insurance companies, right? And example stories, which is kind of a testimonial, kind of a personal brand. I met Brian, a 100 million insurance CEO at a networking event. He told me how he scaled Acme Corp to 9 figures in 5 months, right? So we're going to go and say, okay, well, there are 7 lessons that I learned from Brian, a $100 million insurance CEO. Or scale from 8 to 9 figures entirely with meta ads was a contrarian bet. Here's why it worked, right? So we're talking a little bit more about why that mechanism at that particular time was the right choice. Then we have how I'd use meta ads again to scale my insurance company to $100 million faster. One CEO told me. So we're kind of retelling their story from like a passive voice. And here, Brian scaled from 10 to 100 million in 5 years. Here's 10 tips on how to do it and have the time with meta ads, right? So we're kind of using the fact that they told us, that Brian told us exactly how he did it. Now we can retell that story based on what we've learned from that person in all these different angles, and so on and so on. And now, if we write just 2 or 3 of these variations, and we have 5 to 7 post kernels, boom, 1 content interview, and we have 20 unique LinkedIn posts. And the most important part is by this being the way you operate with a content agency, with a LinkedIn ghostwriter they're working with, they are able to write all these posts not just in your voice, not just to your ICP, by using the exact insights that you have that nobody else does. Because if you just know what you sound like and you know who you're serving, well, everybody could write the same posts on LinkedIn, right? The only way to differentiate yourself, especially so in the era of AI, is actually to have stories and results that nobody else does. And this is exactly how you can stand out on LinkedIn and get more clients for yourself. Then we get to write the final LinkedIn post. So we have the 20 posts, then we publish them, and then we wait for data, right? We want to see which of these posts landed best with the audience. Then we gather them before the second content interview. And then we want to double down on the ideas that were received best and get more angles and depth to them. And the ones that didn't, we're just going to collect more stars. And this way, each and every content interview, we're focusing 20% of our time on deepening the ideas that already landed well, and we're spending the rest on testing new ideas. And as we get more and more of these ideas to land, we can actually start shifting that split into more of the same stories, just told from different angles, and testing less of the new ones. And simply, when you repeat that process every 2 to 4 weeks, you actually get to have a full content schedule that allows you to build a proper content system for yourself on LinkedIn. So if you found this video valuable, check out the link in the description below. We're going to go in depth over the 2 remaining topics that we didn't mention in this video, which are the content strategy and the profile optimization. There's no opt-in. You can just go, scroll through it, and at the end of it, I'm actually going to give you a special gift. It's also free, where you'll be able to implement all of this knowledge that I've learned about LinkedIn if you want to run this content for yourself. I'll see you there. Take care.